Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday. We're back. Thanksgiving Eve. How can it be any better? Gotta love Thanksgiving Eve. Back for another Managing Your Small Business Through the Pandemic webinar, 37th since March. So, good afternoon. My name is Kelly Bearden. I am the director of the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. And for many of these 37 weeks, I've been your host, and we'll get through today, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. Got a great guest, Jim Arnold, guy I've known for quite a while up in Tehachapi with the Triassic Vineyards, and a great story that he's going to tell about the wine grape growing regions. We also have a lot of other news to talk about, a lot of things to be thankful for. I know many of you woke up this Thanksgiving Eve and are not traveling for the first time, maybe in a long time. So traveling is kind of out. So as we go through a pandemic Thanksgiving, a little different, but still a lot to be thankful for. And we're going to get into a lot to be thankful for before this is over with and show a lot of gratitude for life and what's going on. So first of all, as most of you know, we're probably part of still of the America's SBDC, 1,000 centers across the country. And of those 1,000 centers in California, we have 6 regions, and we're part of the Central California region. Our area from our offices here in downtown Bakersfield consists of Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. Also, a large amount of centers throughout the San Joaquin Valley, the Central Coast, and also the Eastern Sierra. So other centers, as you know, are located in Clovis and Merced, Modesto, have a center in Monterey County and Salinas, and also San Luis Obispo. So remember, the SBDC is here to help. So we are there and open throughout the pandemic. So what's to talk about today? It's November 25th as we wind down with 2020 and only last webinar in November. It is Thanksgiving Eve and really a great day to take notice and notice that we're not traveling as much this year. I seldom travel. I have this policy of I don't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. I like to commute from essentially my bedroom to the big screen TV and watch a little football or whatever. This morning, my Thanksgiving Eve is like it is normal Thanksgiving Eves. I got up and realized I had to brine the turkey in order to smoke it when I get up at the awful hour tomorrow morning to fire up the smoker. So I also smoke a turkey in addition to the traditional one. It's just 11.5 pounder this year. But traditions are traditions. And so the salt, the sugar, threw in what vegetables or what fruits I had around here to enhance the brining flavor. Actually threw in persimmons for the first time, but didn't really want to go to a store and get other things. So some citrus, and we're off on Thanksgiving Eve. So can't actually say we've done a webinar before on Thanksgiving Eve. It's normally what day we would avoid, but we're here every Wednesday. So we're going to look at a little bit of kind of what's happening with the local and state mandated things that are going on. So as you noticed, the virus is really kind of taking off again, and we're going to kind of look through a few of the things that are maybe affecting that and go back. One thing I wanted to do and reflect a little bit today was I went back and I looked at webinars 4, 14, 24, and 34. So we had to look at the 4s. And there's some interesting slides I want to share with you that are pertaining to what we're going to be talking about today that occurred during those webinars. So each of those will be well represented today. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get my take on the stimulus like you have PPP EIDL and the Main Street program that made significant news. So the Main Street program, the PPP, the big news, and we'll get into some more of this, but what I'm going to share with you, at least during this introductory part, is that the good news is this week we received our first SBA approval forgiveness. Thank you, Tasha, for sending that in to us. And if anybody else has, please go to the chat box. Put in the chat box that the SBA has approved. Not only have you got it through the bank, but it has now been officially approved by the SBA. And if you've had that fortune so far, which I don't think that's pretty much our first. And so do put it in there or put in anything that you might want to add. I appreciate your feedback as always on all this stuff. That's how we learn what's going on through our consulting team and the clients that we talk to and the people that attend our webinars. So thank you for contributing and continuing to do that. Also, we're going to be talking a little bit today about a new program called California Rebuild. And we'll get into much more of that next week when we have time for that. But also a new program that's out there for funding. And we'll touch the bases today. It opened on Friday. Next week, we'll have a lender and here's a guest speaker and go through it in much greater detail. Also, one thing to be thankful for is a little bit on Small Business Saturday coming up. And it's really our opportunity as not only small business people, but also in order to try to really rally the community behind our small businesses and everything that they're selling and going through at this time. Never before has Small Business Saturday been more important than it is this year. The opportunity to go frequent the small businesses, and even if it isn't with gift cards or holiday shopping or potentially restaurants that you frequent. And really my focus is going to be on the restaurants that are struggling more than others. And my focus is going to be on those sit-down diners that really don't have a drive-through. They don't have or didn't have a dedicated delivery service beforehand. It's going to be those that are most impacted by, again, as we move into the purple or stay into the purple, as it's going to likely be. We're going to talk a little bit about and go through BCARES and the Kern Recovery nonprofit portions. Both of those are really kind of shaping up and really coming close to an end. And we really want to get everybody kind of in those particular programs because it's really kind of the last chance to actually access or get funding through those. Our special guest, as mentioned, is going to be Jim Arnold of Triassic Vineyards. And your questions can go into the question box and we will answer questions at the end of the webinar. And also, as always, or usually anyway, a poll. So today's poll is going to be based on, of course, Thanksgiving. And, you know, we have a lot to be thankful for still. You know, I like to say Thanksgiving is about the F's, the letter F. It's about family and friends. We have a feast. We have football. We have fellowship. We have fond memories. So, you know, what I want to know is from a business perspective, what you're going to be most thankful for. And let me launch this poll. And it is beyond family, friends, feast, football, fellowship, and fond memories. What are you most thankful for from a business perspective? Is it, and you can actually select multiple choices here. It's not only a single choice, but it can be your employees, your customers, your pandemic relief programs. Maybe you're most thankful for the Kern Recovers, your community, or my own personal drive to survive this pandemic and everything we're going through. So you get multiple choices. I almost could have put all of the above and made it easy for you, but you know, maybe there's a couple in there you want to leave out, or maybe there's one that stands out. But really, at a time to be thankful and show gratitude is what Thanksgiving is about. From a business perspective, during maybe your most trying year ever, what do you have to be thankful for? And we're going to give you another few minutes to jump in here and see which ones are going to be, they're all going to be high. They're all going to be high because they're all pretty good choices. But let's give you one last second to vote, your last chance to jump in and vote. And then what we're going to do is we're going to end the poll and show what we have. And sharing the results, most grateful, number one, and first and foremost, your customers. And really the customers have really shown up. But look at number two. Number two on the list is community. And it's really kind of how the community comes together and how we have as not only a small business community, but an entire community to try to support and try to benefit each other. We see also very highly ranked are the pandemic release programs and also the employees. And lastly is your individual drive to just survive this pandemic. Okay, well, a different poll, one we haven't seen before, but definitely showing a little bit of Thanksgiving love on the day before Thanksgiving. So thank you for that. And let's move on. So really one of the big things in the news this week was kind of the Fed program that kind of is going away. And so one thing that we did see is we saw a lot going back and forth. And I thought it was kind of telling from my standpoint of what's going on and what's happened since the election. And the Fed Main Street Lending Program is a program that we've discussed several times on the program. And it goes back to, I think, when we had Keith Bryce on, and about the fourth one, where there was discussions of this great program that was going to come out. And it was going to be for small and medium-sized businesses. It was going to include credit lines and term loans, and it was just something that had us so excited about. Well, what came out of that was a program that originated, I believe, from the Treasury, went over to the Federal Reserve Bank, and originally had about 600 billion of CARES Act money to boost small and medium-sized businesses. And the program really kind of stalled, even though we talked about it a few times. We didn't really get into it because we were just not seeing the results. We weren't seeing lenders in our community. And when I say our community, I'll go throughout the entire region, because I did not find a lender in our entire region other than a couple of major banks. And what we found is that we found that really lenders really wasn't a program that they wanted to do. So moving fast forward, the program had about a $13 billion spent in it. A couple of big ones came out recently. We have 24-Hour Fitness that actually received about a $300,000 or $300 million loan, which is encouraging, and that some of the bigger businesses, the medium-sized businesses, we might say, had a place to go. And I think that was why this was created, was whereas PPP, the forgivable aspect, was for the smaller lenders and smaller borrowers, actually. What we found is we found that for bigger companies that had liquidity and had borrowing capabilities, this was a program to try to backstop them. So to cut to the chase, about 13 billion, and then there was a lot of news this last week about, and the program was sent to expire at 12/31, and there was a lot of conversation that the Treasury Secretary, Mr. Mnuchin, was not going to move forward with trying to get some type of extension after it expired on 12/31, and seek to have the money returned to the Treasury that was unused at 12/31. This led off a political storm, which became very partisan, of course, and is kind of like the problem of why we don't have a stimulus program right now. So, it's something that I think people have 5 weeks to jump into, and hopefully those that need it will take advantage of it. And hopefully the remaining money can go back and be reused or repurposes, or when we have a new administration in January, they can kick it off again and maybe try to find a way to where lenders in the San Joaquin Valley will be interested in doing something with it. It all comes down to being local, doesn't it? So that's a little bit about the Main Street program, but really the bigger story out of the Main Street program, what it started to tell me was that as far as the stimulus, and let's go back a slide here. Let's go back, because this is my take on stimulus, is that it's going to really be potentially the end of January before we get a stimulus package. That is starting to be the reality that I'm seeing. I know I was here 3 weeks ago, the day after the election, saying that it appears that we're going to be able to move on and get stimulus and take care of our smallest of small businesses, our unemployed people that are really, really hurting right now, and others as well that Congress sees fit. But now it just seems like we're kind of bogged down in this Georgia election for 2 senators that's not going to happen until January 5th. And until we know what happens in that election, and if the Democrats take both seats, then they will basically control the Senate, the House, and the executive office, and we'll see a stimulus of what they really want at that time. In the meantime, hopefully something gets done. Hopefully something that a bipartisan effort can agree on, but I'm not too optimistic that anything's going to happen until after the inauguration, the third week in January. So that leaves us as small business people trying to struggle and make ends meet during really, really the dark days of the pandemic, of where we thought we were coming out of it, and now we're being thrust back into it. A time when we have Christmas and we have the holiday season coming up, and we have so many opportunities for small businesses if we're open and we're able to actually see our customers. So that all said, that is where I think stimulus is going, and that's my take on after what happened with the bipartisanness of the Main Street Lending Program. So hopefully I'm wrong, been wrong before, but really kind of analyzing, we were trying to hope that maybe we'd have something going, and I just don't see it happening for 2 months. So in that time, we'll make do. So with that now, and we're getting into let's get back into our testing and our COVID, because, we're definitely in the purple tier and we're going to stay there for quite a while. Something happened yesterday that was quite telling for me as well. In talking with a member of the Latino task force last night, yesterday they did a Bakersfield College free COVID-19 testing. And you might recall about 3 weeks ago, we had free testing for 2 days on the campus of CSU Bakersfield, something I was very proud of, and told you that we had over 500 people that were tested those 2 days. Well, a sign of the times, yesterday at Bakersfield College, over 800 people were tested in 1 day. So there is the testing that's going on. There is now there is the concern of the virus in the community and how it's spreading. So we will also have the Latino Task Force out in force on Saturday and Sunday this weekend at the Vallarta markets on Nile, and also on Panama Lane in Bakersfield, and masks will be given. So there's that opportunity if you want to have free testing this week. Okay, some of the other things, I know we weren't going to talk much. I told you last week, I realize it. I told you last week that we were not going to go this route because we're in the purple tier. We're in the purple tier. I know we're in the purple tier. We're going to be in the purple tier for a while, but just to see how cases have jumped up here also, and really just a reminder about how cautious and how safe we need to be, but still try to keep our businesses open and keep our businesses working and productive. It is really a tough road to hoe. It is really a thin rope to walk that tightrope. But you see the cases that have gone up in Kern, and we see now that most of the state of California is going purple. Not too big of a shock there, but we see cases increase also in Inyo County. So also in Mono, where we still see the moderate in Inyo, and we see substantial, some non-purple colors in the state of California are in Inyo and Mono. So looking at that, maybe our last look for quite a while. And, it says up here tier assignment. I think they misspelled the word tier. I think it's supposed to be TEAR. But I digress. So county-wise, let's jump in real quick at our county numbers and look at that. The county did report kind of a record number of cases. It seems like they had built up, but we had about 918 cases reported on Monday. It was down to 200 and something yesterday. Sometimes you get that where they roll in big numbers, but everything is pretty much blowing up in the wrong direction than we want it to go. Fortunately, the deaths have remained relatively stable. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, in going back when I was telling you about the fours that we were looking at, let me jump back here for a second and go back to the PowerPoint, because I think that there's a slide I have next that kind of shows something that's really telling. And this was a slide that we actually had on our 14th webinar back around the early part of June, around the 8th or 10th of June, somewhere in there. And you see kind of like this bell curve projection of when it was going to happen. And I actually haven't gone in to see actually what had happened between these period of time. But you notice if we're in November, December, we're kind of looking about right in this area of where we are at surge capacity for ICU beds. I don't know if that's the case, but it looks like that this is something that really shouldn't have been a great shock to us, that we were going to have this surge later on. And it was something that the modeling was actually showing us, to where it really doesn't peak till around January or February. So again, this was just something from June. I found it interesting when I was looking through it that I kind of had not been talking about this. I had missed this, that actually there was going to be something we had heard, maybe in the fall it's going to get worse, etc. So that was something that that was kind of fascinating from that standpoint. Just real quickly going through a few of these other sites, we just wanted to look at some of the resources that we find that are really important. And some of these resources is the city of Bakersfield, their business assistance grants are still open. We are estimating that it's going to be another couple of weeks where they still have money and they're still accepting online applications. Kern Recovers is still happening in both the PPE support program. So there's still a lot of PPE out there that you can request. And it seems like PPE is needed more than ever in all of our businesses that are able to be open. So the mask and the sanitizer, the gloves, are all still available free of charge, in addition to the wipes. Go through that particular process. And one thing that's ending, and we won't be talking about any longer, so is going to be the Kern Recovers nonprofit program, nonprofit grant program. And this is a program that is going to end on 11/29. So if you're a nonprofit in Kern County, this is really your last chance to apply. It really needs to happen in the next 3 or 4 days. So there's a resource at the website. So go to the website. If not, the money is going to probably be repurposed for other things, as most of this CARES Act money that came from the federal government that we're seeing local communities put out, such as Wasco. We've seen it in Inyo and Mono County. If you're coming from San Luis Obispo or Fresno County, you've seen it up there too. All those are still set to expire on 12/31. So if the money isn't spent, the money technically is going to be repurposed at that time. So it's pretty much one of our last chances. And then also one program that is new that we're going to talk about much more next week when we have more time, and that is going to be the California Rebuilding Fund. And the one thing that is nice about the California Rebuilding Fund is that it right now has $125 million. You can apply online. So if you want to apply online, it is a loan. It is not forgivable. You're going to start seeing this with a lot of programs that since the PPP came out, that it's not associated, and they need to be paid back over 3 to 5 year terms. Low interest rate, 4.25, $100,000 and less. We'll have a lender on next week that'll get into this big time. So that will be something for next week. If you want to go to it right now, we will send out the link for this, but it is just the California Rebuild Fund. Google that and go through the quick pre-qualification process. I actually did go through the pre-qualification process yesterday just to kind of vet it. And here's a number of the lenders. A lot of the lenders are what are called CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, and they're the ones that are really kind of pushing this. So these are the nonprofit lenders that are behind this with the state of California and to try to get these monies out. So resources and more resources that are out there. So we will continue next week and talk about this a little bit more. I kind of forgot to show you. Here's the Main Street Lending Program. Well, we talked about that. No use beating the dead horse, right? So moving along and going back to the PowerPoint, a few other things before we bring on our guest speaker. And that is going to be a little bit of a fraud warning. We're still seeing some fraud, and I mean, we're just scratching the surface on this California unemployment fraud, which is huge and really something that, you know, all of us that pay into the California Unemployment Fund and see our money used and misused it's not pretty. But this is kind of from webinar number 4, where there was fraud going on back there with the SBA alerts. And just one that came up last week, I just wanted to share with you an email, a phishing email that's going out, and show you, it's a really legitimate looking email, until of course you come up here to where I've highlighted the email address where it's from, and you'll see that whereas it says it's from Lindsay Long at sba.gov, the actual email address is a Gmail account, which obviously spells fraud. And I know most of you are onto this, and but it's just a reminder that another thing that I saw that kind of kicks this out, is of course the phone number that you can go Google, and you can see other people that may have reported it as being a fraudulent site. Google, just put the number in and see what it comes back at. But there are some really authentic looking things here, including the application number. The EIDL loan program did have numbers that started with a 33. I did not check to see if they had the right number of digits. I didn't go that far. But here's what they're fishing for. They're fishing for government ID, which is oftentimes going to be your driver's license, front and back, and your W-2 or a tax transcript, which gives them your social security number. And those are the two things they're fishing for to steal your identity. So that's going on. Be on the lookout for that. We share our timeline with you every week on the timeline for forgiveness. And again, I still think we have a number of major banks that are not have opened their SBA forgiveness portal yet. So that is kind of delaying a few things. But remember, you have 10 months, the window from the covered period to apply. So by taking the 24-week covered period, there's still 10 months that you have in order to get that done with your lender. Now, I would be getting all of your ducks in a row, and I would be getting everything ready so you can apply, because we really don't know with a second stimulus coming, or if there's going to be a second stimulus, if there's going to be another PPP, that if you need to file for that forgiveness portion of it in order to go after the second. But again, the urgency is not on this right now as far as the timeline. I want to continue to share that with you. And since we have Jim Arnold on with us today, I just wanted to show you something from, I believe this was our 24th webinar. So we've hit 414, 24, and 34. And this one is going to be pretty much guidance that came on the EIDL. And just a reminder that if you have an EIDL loan, you have a UCC1 that is basically covering, the SBA is covering, and essentially you have pledged all of your assets. And you do need to notify the SBA if you're looking at selling any of your business assets, any of your substantial assets. And that even includes as far down as a vehicle. So keep that in mind. And it's vehicles that you could have owned before the process began. If you received an EIDL, it could have been any equipment. Oftentimes you can go through it. You just need to notify SBA, and they need to consent for you to be in compliance with that particular provision. So just a reminder on the sale or trade of collateralized equipment, which is collateralized under the EIDL loan. Okay, let's bring out Jim. Jim's going to join us now. This is great. Jim Arnold, along with his wife Sally, own Triassic Winery, located in Tehachapi, California. And this is I wrote up this one myself for Jim. So I tried to make it the Jim that I know and Jim that I've met and have known for quite a few years now. Jim was previously in professional or financial services before moving to Orange County, and moved into a dream community, purchasing the winery and a wonderful home on the property in the beautiful, beautiful Cummings Valley area outside of Tehachapi. From there, they went on to build on the forefathers of the area, of which had started a thriving, or began to start a thriving wine industry in Tehachapi, and create consistently great wines, blessed with incredible Triassic soil. Ideally, weather and growing conditions, Jim and Sally started producing consistently award-winning wines. I'm partial to Jim's Zinfandels over the years. I believe double gold winners at the San Francisco Chronicle Wine Show. Matter of fact, his 2000, I believe it was 2015 year vintage graced my Thanksgiving table, which is a real honor, Jim, because I am really selective about the wine that's on my Thanksgiving Day table. So all that, Jim is outstanding advocates for the region. The couple does a lot. Jim, it's great to have you joining us. Can't tell you how happy I am with the news that you are going to report on and some of the other things that are going on. Thank you for joining us from your tasting room. Great to have you here. Thanks, Jim.
Well, thanks, Kelly. It's an honor and a pleasure. And you mentioned our awards. I'm sitting in front of our award cabinet that shows the awards we won up at the San Francisco Chronicle, which is the largest wine competition in the country. Kind of reminds me of when I was raising my kids. I coached the soccer and softball and baseball, and you're always proud as a parent of the trophies they win. Well, now my kids are grown and moved away, so now my kids are 7,000 grapevines out there, and these trophies are the awards that they won, so we're very proud of that. But give you a little background on Kelly did a fine job of introducing Sally and I. In fact, we purchased Triassic in 2013, but we really owe a lot to the original pioneers in the wine industry up here in Tehachapi, and that's Bob and Patty Souza, who went against UC Davis's advice back in 2002, I believe it was. They planted a vineyard in Tehachapi, and UC Davis said it couldn't be done because of the altitude and climate that they weren't familiar with. They just didn't think it could happen. And Bob and Patty planted a nice little 7 acres and were successful. And later on, Chuck McCullough planted Triassic Vineyards, which Kelly and I purchased in 2013. And now we have 7 vineyards. They're all boutique vineyards. The smallest is about an acre with the Dorner family vineyard. We have 7 acres. Mike Chan has 20 acres. And so we have varying sizes of boutique vineyards. And we have 4 wine tasting rooms currently open and 2 wineries. Now there's a difference because the winery is where you make the wine. And we have 2 of them. Mike Chan has a 10,000 square foot winery. And Mike Dorner has a little boutique winery under his wine tasting room, so he makes wine up here. The rest of us, we harvest our fruit and then take them to a winery. And for us, it's Pacello Winery down in Santa Clarita. So we harvest our grapes and take it down to Santa Clarita to have the wine made. Give you a little background. We mentioned that the AVA, some of you may have read the article a week ago, actually, that Kevin McCarthy announced in his press release that the Tehachapi Mountain AVA was approved. Now, a lot of people don't know what an AVA is, but it's considered the origin of the grapes that you find in a wine. When you look at a bottle of wine, you're going to see something at the bottom that's going to be the origin of the grapes. Now, the AVA goes back to about 1700. I mean, there's European wines that were historically where the primary wine came from. And it was back in, we have here, 1716 was the first AVA, and that was in Chianti, Italy in 1716, and then Hungary in 1730. In the United States, what's interesting is back in 1889, Napa Valley went to this wine competition in the University in Paris in 1889, and Napa Valley wines won 20 of the 34 medals, including 4 gold medals won by California entries. Now, that's a big event because earlier European wines were what everybody thought was the best wines in the world, and then back in 1889, Napa won these awards, and ever since then, we're now on the map as far as the world is concerned. It's kind of old country, new country is how it's described by sommeliers. And it's been interesting because currently we have 240 AVAs in the United States. And out of that 240, 140 of them are here in California. So clearly California is the largest wine growing region in the country. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the wines from Napa or Paso Robles, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. And the way the AV happens is when a particular area thinks their grapes are more distinguished than another area. Napa, as an example, has 12 separate AVAs within Napa Valley, and Paso Robles has several also. So it's important because, as an example for us, the wines that are grown up here are different than most other areas. We're at 4,000 feet elevation, so we're going to have we actually will have the highest AVA in the country. Nobody else can grow grapes at this elevation because of frost. But we have warm air from the Antelope Valley, we get warm air from the San Joaquin Valley, and as a result, it cuts down on the amount of frost that we can have, and it allows us to grow grapes. And there's several other characteristics in the fact that 4,000 feet, we're closer to the sun. And what that does is it results in stronger ultraviolet rays, which thicken the skins of the grapes. And the thick skins, when it goes through fermentation, provides color and tannins and other characteristics to the wine that, by our grapes having thicker skins, brings out some flavors and things that you don't, and color that you don't find from other grapes at lower elevation. So when the wine industry finds out about us, we expect that there's going to be a lot more interest in the Tehachapi Mountain area for growing grapes because of the unique qualities of the climate that we have. But also the land is relatively inexpensive to other parts of the state when it comes to purchasing land for grapes. And also the water. Our water is not, we don't have the water problems they do in other parts of the states, where actually there's moratoriums because there have been too many vineyards planted. So this all is going to create an opportunity for us up here in Tehachapi, but also Kern County. And I think that's one of the things that Kevin McCarthy recognized is the value of an AVA to the community and to the county to bring fresh revenue and to maintain the revenue that we have here right now.
Well, Jim, being a connoisseur myself, as you know, and actually having a small vineyard up in the Sierra foothills, one thing about the AVA that you were stuck with, essentially, where you default to, is California. And oftentimes we associate that with lower cost and lower price wines that are produced in California, because there isn't that AVA. So how is the AVA from a sales and marketing position going to help you market your wines, not only statewide, but almost nationally or globally?
Well, as I think I mentioned earlier, the AVA are what you see. I don't know if you can see this bottle, but on the bottom it says California. And that establishes, as Kelly mentioned, the origin of the wines. Well, when we now, as of December 21st, we'll be able to put Tehachapi Mountain on our bottles. So that's going to identify the wines that have Tehachapi Mountain are going to have grapes that come from Tehachapi area. So it's going to take a while for people to really know who we are because as a lot of people say, we're a little jewel here in California that people just aren't aware of. But it'll increase the value of the grapes coming from here as we become successful. And in wine competition, I think that's probably the measurement in the industry of how good your wine is based upon wine competitions and things such as that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it'll bring value to Kern County and to Tehachapi.
So Jim, there's a lot going on. You know, the wine industry is unique. You know, I like to think of it as being similar to, you know, the roadside exit where you find like 5 or 6 fast food or quick serve restaurants. All you're trying to do is get people to the area in order to enjoy your product. So actually, it's really unique, whereas your actually fellow competitors or fellow wineries up there are also complement what you do and what is done in the entire community. And you have some great wineries up there and some great vineyards that are happening and some wines being made. It just seems like it's going to be a great opportunity to really take off now.
Well, you're right. And we do have other wineries, our wine tasting rooms, but we don't see ourselves as competitors, although we really are. Certainly from my perspective, all of us are better than any one of us. And when I go to places to do wine pouring for nonprofit organizations. I talk about Triassic, but more importantly, I want to talk about all of the wine tasting rooms up here because it's the experience that people are looking for, and advising how well we've been received and how the people in Bakersfield and the Arnold Valley have discovered that they can have some very good wine tasting experiences up here in Tehachapi. They don't have to go to Paso Robles or drive for 3 or 4 hours to get there. But anyway, so we're working together as a group up here to promote all of us. However, the challenge is we got to get a bigger pie, because if we have more wine tasting rooms, we have to slice up a piece of pie, and the slice gets smaller unless we make the pie bigger. So that's our goal as we move forward, is to market ourselves as a Tehachapi wine growing region.
Jim, you had an extraordinary accomplishment earlier this year with the best of class at the before mentioned San Francisco Chronicle wine competition. Tell us a little bit about that wine.
Well, it was exciting because we've entered every year since we purchased the vineyard, and we've won awards every year. But to get best of class means that you're the best of all the entries that were entered in that category. And our category was a red wine blend, with the largest percentage of the varietal was Zinfandel. We had 67% Zinfandel and 23% Petite Syrah. And the winemaker just thought it was the best. And it's exciting when you look at the list of the other competitors or the other people who entered entries into that particular category. I share that with people when they come into the wine tasting room. As I said, I'm a proud papa celebrating our trophies. But it's amazing to see other people look at the list and they go, wow, I've been there. Gee, I've been there. I've been there. And for us to be at the top, it's like winning the Super Bowl. And we got a double gold too in last year's competition, which is a step below best of class. And they list the double golds entries, and we were the top double gold. So we're getting recognition, and it's in the industry of San Francisco Chronicle, and we're really proud of it.
Well, it's great timing to have that and the AVA come along at the same time. So your wine that won the award was your 2016 Big Bang?
Right, 2016. And interestingly, every year we will have the same blend, but it's a different percentage of wine based upon what the flavors of the wines are for that year. So it's not always going to be 67% Zinfandel and 23% Petite Syrah, because in fact, one year we had I think it was 60-40. And every year it's a little different. Our winemakers do a great job of getting the right flavors together. Mm-hmm. And you said earlier something about what are we thankful for? And I have to say, I'm very thankful for our winemakers, certainly because they're responsible. But I'm also thankful for this AVA, because it's something that the community has been waiting for many, many years. And now that that's arrived, it's going to turn a new leaf, start a new chapter for the Tehachapi wine growing. And also, I'm thankful for our wine club members and the folks that have supported us, because some people want to consider this an essential business, because when it comes to wine, it's oftentimes considered medicine. And so we've had our wine club members that have just really reached out to support us. And, even through this pandemic, when I compare our revenue to where we were year to date last year, we're right where we were a year ago. No growth, but we haven't lost anything. And that's a testimony to our community and to our customers. As that survey showed, we're also thankful for our customers. And that certainly is true for us too.
Jim, obviously the pandemic's had a big impact on your business. Fewer people traveling, less of destination, less events. Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you've had, but also the opportunities you have moving forward and what you're going to be doing in the next few weeks.
Well, the pandemic has certainly affected us, like it has all of you. But for us, I think it's been a little different in that, like I said, our wine club members have been very supportive of us. We've had to comply with the governor's rules and regulations, and I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is trying to anticipate, well, what are we going to be able to do next weekend? I know all of you that are in business are finding the same thing as you try to plan for staffing and for various other requirements. It's a challenge. Uh, as an example, there was a period of time where all we could do is curbside sales. So people had to drive up and honk the horn, and we'd go out and get their wine and bring them out to them. And then later it opened up where we could sell wine if we were served a meal. And so we talked to the health department, and they considered a slice of pizza is considered a meal. So we have Mike Moser, which is our farmhouse cafe just within a half a mile from us, has been able to cook the pizzas for us. And so we went through that period of time. And we've had to do the outdoor pouring. Now, in Tehachapi at 4,000 feet, we get cold up here. But fortunately, when we bought the place, we enclosed the area, the patio area, with some drop-down curtains that have plastic curtains and canvas that has provided some shelter inside the patio area. And we have our outdoor heaters, and it can be 25 degrees, and it has been 25 degrees in a storm outside those curtains, but inside it's just warm and toasty with our little outdoor heaters, and so people can have a nice experience. And it's been interesting, Kelly, as far as our customers and people have told us that when they've come here that oftentimes this was the first place they came to outside of their home, that they were hesitant to leave their home, they were hesitant to get out because of the COVID restrictions and all of that. But being outdoors in our patio area has been comfortable, and in some respects, we probably have the best outdoor seating in Tehachapi because we were already there, where other restaurants and places have to put up tents and outdoor heaters in their parking lots, and so it's a little different ambiance. So that's really helped us, and it's really, I feel like we're providing a service for folks that need a timeout and to get away from home and visit with friends. And so they come to Triassic for that experience.
Jim, along that lines, you're doing something for Small Business Saturday. You're celebrating Small Business Saturday as a small business this weekend on Saturday. Tell us what you have going on this weekend.
Well, we're happy to provide free wine tasting for any business owner that comes up to Triassic to never been here before. We'll be happy to provide a 5 tasting complimentary serving for you to sell it. Well, maybe for medicinal purposes. Come up and have some of our medicine and relax a little bit. So we'll give out free wine tastings to any business owner who brings their card up. And by the way, if I happen to not be, I'll tell my staff about it. But you said Jim said I get this free. We'll be happy to provide it for you.
So Jim, you have a kind of a personal milestone today, don't you? A 48-year wedding anniversary. You know, what happened? Did you have to have special permission for Sally to marry at such a young age?
Well, gee whiz, that's kind of a personal situation. But yes, today is our 48th wedding anniversary. It's been quite a journey to be married for anybody for that long. And I'm sure those of you know what we're talking about. It's not always perfect. You got your ups and downs, and it was certainly a big change for us to move from Orange County, Newport Beach up here to Tehachapi. But it was a joint decision, and we really enjoy it up here. We're spending meeting some wonderful people up here. 48 years.
So Jim, most of your offerings that you have, and tell us about all the wines that you have briefly, but they're all small lot cases, generally 100, 200 cases. So you have to, if you enjoy something like I did the 15 Zinfandel, you got to get up there quicker or join the wine club or some order online or something like that. So tell us about the other wines that you have.
Well, we have 4 varietals that we grow currently. We have 2 acres of Viognier, which is a white wine from France. It's very good, nice dry white wine. We have 1 acre of Tempranillo. We have 2 acres of Zinfandel, and we have 1 acre of Syrah. And then just this last spring, we did some grafting, and we grafted 600 vines for Cabernet, and we grafted 300 vines for Petite Syrah. So we'll have some more wines available. But our successes in some of our blends our winemakers put together. Well, our best of class and our double gold were both blends, of some of our wines. And so we're looking forward to possibly expanding a little bit and maybe bringing in a little bit more Cabernet. But that's where we are right now with the wines we have.
Well, it's exciting. And what's going to be your first wine that you actually put Tehachapi on the label?
Question. I'm excited. Well, I think we're going to be doing the next bottling is going to be in February. And in February, what are we going to be doing? Our 18s will be bottled. So our red 18 wines with our Zin, our Syrah, and Tempranillo. It'll be our first release of our estate-grown Tempranillo because we took an acre of Zinfandel and grafted Tempranillo to it. And our winemakers tell it's fabulous. In fact, they consider our grapes world class. They say, Jim, your grapes are as good as anything they've ever used when making wine. So we're looking forward to that Tempranillo when it's released in February, probably.
Well, Jim, earlier you credited the winemakers and doing such a great job of crafting the wine from your grapes, but most of us know that really great wine begins in the vineyard. And really, when you pick those grapes, you're pretty much set with what you're going to have. So really big congratulations for all the things and all the accomplishments that you've had. It's great. It's great. And there's opportunity for more. There can be more vineyards and wineries in the Tehachapi region.
We sure hope so. The more, the better. I mean, I'm looking forward to driving down 58 and seeing rows and rows of vines. And people in the community are too, because it's going to improve the quality of life in many ways. So come on up and test our wines.
Well, I've been to your place a number of times, and we've talked a lot, and it's just a gorgeous setting, just an absolutely beautiful setting. The tasting room. If you go to Jim's website, Jim and Sally's website at Triassic Vineyards, and that's with a tri and like a form of donkey in the middle with an IC, Triassic Vineyards. You can go there and you can see some pictures, and really the one that's really stunning, Jim, is the one from the vineyard kind of back toward the estate that shows the tasting room. I should have popped it up here, and it shows a mountain behind you that is just full of poppies. It's just a gorgeous sight.
Yeah,
so
springtime, the poppies are all over. It's really pretty.
It's just a slice of Kern County that is beyond compare. So Jim, I want to thank you for joining us, and really excited about the possibilities with the AVA. It is I know it's been an accomplishment that's taking 4 or 5 years or longer, and really coming out with that news last week was great news for not only the local vineyard and wineries, but also the community of Tehachapi and all of Kern County.
Yes, it is. We're proud.
Okay, well, thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
We're going to see if there's any questions for us. I see one related to the PPP program. So hopefully you got in on that, Jim. Excellent. And hopefully there's a 2. So let's see. How do I indicate justification for non-replacement of separated employees? It was funded for 10 full-time employees and use PPP funds to pay 7. Well, the best way to do this is a couple of different ways. One is to go in and actually, if they left did not return, it is always best to document that. But there are also a couple of safe harbors, but let's not look at the safe harbors first. Let's look at the actual way of doing that with your 3 employees that did not return. So if you received any email or resignation letter, and then you weren't able to find somebody qualified to replace them, usually that's fine. With the safe harbors that have come out, it's almost hard to find any business that almost doesn't qualify for them. And it's essentially that if your business has been impacted, if it was ever closed down, or if it was ever restricted because of COVID, where people couldn't go to work, oftentimes those are waivers where you just need to basically check a box and say, yes, we were significantly impacted. And there are 2 of the safe harbors that are out there. But If you don't want to use the safe harbor, if you have 3 people that didn't come back and they informed you in writing of any way, shape, or form, that will substantiate and cover you for that. Okay? Any other questions? Well, I don't see any. I don't see any. So list of our sponsors there, and we're going to come back next week. And again, we're going to talk about the California Rebuild Program, which will be number 38. And that date is not correct. It will not be November 18th. We are not going back 2 weeks in time. It will be December 2nd. So great to have you along for the ride, and really want to wish everybody a very, very happy Thanksgiving. It's really a great time of year, and everybody kind of take a load off this this weekend and get out and support your small businesses. And I'd really like to thank Jim Arnold for joining us this week. So for Jim Arnold, I'm Kelly Bearden, and we'll be back next week. Everybody have a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the great holiday, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye now.